And we're back. Okay, so in today's video, we are going to talk about how to create different user accounts for your server. It might just be you in your office. That's fine. You're going to need a user for yourself. You created that actually in the original setup. However, if you're like most firms or you've grown a little bit and you're bringing on staff or have paralegals that you're using, you need to know how to give access to files to them. So let's do that. First of all, I need you to log into your NAS. Now, your NAS can be found by downloading the Synology Assistant app. So if you've installed everything and then you forgot, oh, how do I log into that NAS? Well, I'll give you a hint. There's an IP address. For example, this is mine, 172.162.3.10. You go into your web browser, you type that, hit enter, you're going to get a login screen, right? Let's prove it. Right. It's loading it still thinks I'm logged in. Let's do this. I'm just gonna log out because I want you to remember how to be able to log back in. If you don't know, then you don't know. Alright, so what was my name? James. What was my password? I'm not telling, but you should know yours. I'm gonna click stay signed in. We click sign in, and again, if you use a password tool, you can use that. Let's go right there. There we go. And we're in. Now, if you don't remember your IP address, go to find.synology.com. And this little app is going to run and it's going to search your local network for an IP address of the Synology NAS disk station. Okay, the other option you have. Oh, see, it found it. Now you can just click connect. Boom. You're connected. And I already logged in, so it's logging us in right there. Okay? Alright, let me put the window back in place here so we can see everything that's going on. Alright, that's good. And we'll go back to the program. Alright, again, this is the help file. You can learn about it by clicking here and reading some articles and having all sorts of fun. But like I said, today we're going to learn about creating user accounts and then creating some shared folders. So first thing we want to do is go to our control panel. Here we are. And you can do advanced mode or basic mode. I always like going in advanced mode. There's more options that we're going to need in the future. So let's click on user. And you can see I've got admin. This is created by default. Guest. This is also created, well, by default, but these are both disabled as accounts right now because I'm an admin and that's my name. Now I've created two additional accounts, Paralegal 1, Paralegal 2. Let me show you how I did it. Click create right here and click okay, so under name we're gonna say Paralegal 3, and you can put in their email if they have one here, but then make a password for them. Okay, make sure, oh, I didn't type it in the right box. There we go. Inconsistent. There we go. It's weak but inconsistent. Give yourself a strong one. This is just for demo purposes. And here we go. Click next. Alright, now it's going to ask you what system group do you want this user to belong to? And I want them to just belong to users. Okay, so we're going to go next. I don't want them to be an administrator, for example. And there's no shared folders, so we're not going to have to worry about that. And for all of these apps, we're going to allow. So by default, those will be allowed. You don't need to check here yet. And we don't need to set any speed limits. And there you go. So it's created Paralegal 1, 2, and 3. So I got these 3 users plus myself. So this is looking pretty good. Now if we wanted, we could create, you know, let's say you have a group of paralegals, but you want them to have different permissions than bookkeepers or than marketing experts or case managers, things like that. You can create different groups right here. So I've got users and administrators and HTTP, which is for services. Let's create another one. We'll just call this bookkeeping or accounting. And we don't need to describe it. It speaks for itself. And there's no folders to share yet anyway, so we're just going to go next, next, next. Okay, and then you can say yes or no, they have access to allow certain applications. Which ones do you want them to have access to? We'll do file station, not FTP though. We'll just leave it there for now. And no need to do any speed limits. All right, now we've got an accounting group. So let's say that I wanted to make one of these users an accountant. So I'm going to go create a user, and I'll just call the user accountant. Why don't we do accountant 1? Never know, right? And we'll give them a password. And a password, Matt. Nope, didn't do it again. There we go. Now it works. Okay, and we want the group to be, instead of users. Oh no, it has to be. They have to be part of users. It's a system default thing. Okay, so that's fine. So we've got one just for accounting. And next, next, next. Give them access to file station, but they already have it, so it's fine. Next, next, apply. Good. Now let's say that for better organization, we want a group that's just for the paralegals. So let's, in our groups here, we're going to create one for paralegals. And again, there's no folders to share yet. We're gonna create those in a moment. We're gonna give access to, well, let's give them access to file station because we know they'll need that. Next, next. All right. So we got a paralegals group. So we got to put some users in it. So paralegal 1. Now we can edit that user. Double click it or click it and then click the edit button. But let's go to user groups and we're going to add them to paralegals and click OK. So not only are they a system user, they are a paralegal. And for paralegal 2, double click, user groups, paralegals, OK. Paralegal 3, user groups, also a paralegal, OK. So essentially, whatever permissions we set for the paralegal group are going to apply to these users because they're a member of that group. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through here. But right now we're done creating users and we're done creating groups. But now they need something to share, right? They're going to want to share files. So let's go to our shared folder button here. And you can see we've already created our data storage, but we have no folders. So we need folders that we need to share. So let's create a folder. And we'll call the first one accounting. And we're not going to bother with the description. We can leave all those settings just how they are. You have the additional option of encrypting this folder as well. So all the data is going to be scrambled unless you enter the password when you use it. We're not going to bother with it at this time. We've got a lot of other security stuff we have in place. But it's an option if you decide to do that now or later. It takes a little while to encrypt and decrypt stuff too. All right, enable data checks. I'm going to skip all that. Apply. And we have a folder now called accounting. Oh, we got a users permissions, group permissions. Let's do local groups. Here we go. So people and administrators can read and write, and we want accounting. So these are groups now that we're talking about. We got a lot of things named accounting. We've got a user named accounting, we have a group named accounting, and we have a folder named accounting. Right now we're talking about group permissions. For the accounting group, they're going to have read and write access to this folder. Okay, so we're going to click OK. There we go. So there's accounting. And if you log in as a user who is an administrator or an accountant, you can see that folder. If you log in as a paralegal, you won't see that folder. Let's create another folder. Let's create one for the paralegals. So this one's going to be client files. And let's go next. Again, we're just going to blow through those. We don't need those. We get to the permissions area, and we're not going to select users one at a time. We're going to select local groups. And this one's going to be paralegals, should have read and write access to it. while the accountants may not need access to these client files. So let's click OK. I'm going to set those permissions, and we got that folder. Let's create one more. And this is going to be marketing materials. Okay, so this is going to be one that we're going to limit to the attorney who is the administrator. So we're not going to encrypt it. We don't need any of that. Apply. And again, we're going to go to local groups. Yeah, so here's what you can do. You can go to local groups and say, okay, administrators get read and write access. Or if you had one user who's going to be the only user who needs access, you can do that. But the administrator, which James is a part of, is going to have access. And that's all we wanted. So we're fine there. Let's click OK. And we've got our 3 folders. And don't they look wonderful? All right, so let's... and of course, the administrator has access to all of them. So let's dig into client files, the shared folder. Well, let's go. Okay, so we've created a shared folder. That's in the control panel. Now we're going to open File Station, which is a package, technically. So it's an app that runs inside of this application on your Synology. But I want to start creating some folders and places to put files. So in here, when it loads, you'll see on the left hand your shared folders that you've created. So these are the access level areas that you can let your users go to. So let's create something in accounting. Let's just create, right click here, create a folder, or you can also say create folder. And the folder is going to be, I don't know, invoices. What do accountants do? Invoicing, right? And let's create another folder here that's called accounts payable. And let's just make one more. Accounts receivable. Let's hope I spelled that right. I don't think I did. I before E except after C. Anyways, that's how it is. So now let's look at client files. We'll make a folder for Steve Jones. Okay, so we've got a folder for Steve Jones. And under marketing materials, we're going to put logo, right? So the law firm's logo. So we're starting to build some folders here. Really fantastic. All right, so now let's think for a second. What's the next step? We've got some stuff in there. Now you want to be able to access that from Windows or from your Mac. All right, now this is where it gets fun, right? There's going to be instructions that vary a little bit between each type of operating system. I'm going to show you Windows because Windows is very commonly used for business, but this will also work on Linux and it'll work on Mac OS, and you can even access things from your phone. But let's talk about Windows first. So for Windows, what you're going to want to do to have access to those things is, I'm going to have to move the recording area here. Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay, so we're recording again. Good. All right, so to be able to read and access these drives, here's what we need to do. You're going to grab your Synology Assistant app, right? Unless you already know your IP address. You need that IP address. So as you can see, mine here is 172.16.203.10. All right, so next thing you're going to do is go down to the search box here. You're going to type in run, which is an application. And you're going to type in / that IP address, 172.16.203.10. Click OK. All right, and now, I don't know if you can see this, it's asking for my network credentials. So it wants to know my username and password for the NAS. And so I'm going to type it in. And I'm going to tell it to remember it. Click OK. And it actually loads up this window here then. That just pops up. And you can see these 3 folders. I can see them because I have access to them. So what I will do next is I will click. Let's play with client files. I'm going to right click here. Now I can either just double click this and I can get into it and I can see Steve Jones's folder and there's nothing in it, but I can put stuff there like some randomly generated PDFs here, right? I drag and drop. But what I really want to do is I want to be able to get to this folder real quickly when I get into my computer. So if I right click, I can say map network drive, and it's going to pick the letter. You can pick any available one there. I've got P available, and I'm going to reconnect that sign in. So as long as I'm connected to the internet, when I log in again to the computer, it's going to connect to that network drive. And it already has my login and password stored. So I'm going to click finish. All right, so now you can see on the left-hand side of my computer, if you go to this PC or my computer here under drive P is going to be client files. So just click that, and here I am with Steve Jones. All right, so you can do that for any folder that you have access to. Again, the steps real quickly are make sure you have your IP address for the device. Type run, enter, backslash, because it's going backwards. 2 backslashes, the IP address, click OK. It's going to pull up the folders that you have access to there, and you can right click and map to network drive any of those that you want to show up on your computer all the time. That's the easiest, best, and fastest way to connect those major folders to your computer, so you got really quick access to them. And then you treat it just like a folder on your computer, except whenever I'm in, for example, Steve Jones's folder, whenever I'm in that folder and I'm copying stuff to it and I don't know, maybe moving some pictures in there or something, I'm not saving those to my computer. Those are going to my NAS, so they're being stored on the server. So it's like real time. You don't have any extra step to go and back it up again. And because we set that computer or that NAS up with the RAID configuration, I've already got data backups happening there, just in the sense that if one of those drives dies, I can pop another one in and it'll fix itself. There's a couple other backup things that we're going to be teaching you next, so stay tuned. But right now, let's just do a little summary of what we learned. All right, one final thought before we get too far ahead of ourselves. I wanted to point out that when we're connecting to that IP address and mapping those network drives, remember in our Synology Assistant here, we use this IP address, we can see that the IP status is DHCP. And what that means is if you turn your Synology off and on again, your router may assign it a different IP address, and then you got to map your network drives again. So to avoid doing that and to simplify your whole life, what we're going to do is we're going to go inside the Synology here, go to the control panel. We're going to go to network, click on network interface, and you'll have one of your LAN ports connected. Whichever one's connected, go ahead and click that down arrow, and you'll see, for example, it says use DHCP yes. Okay, we want to change that, so we're going to click edit, and it says get network configuration automatically. No, use manual configuration, and you'll notice that it's going to have that same IP address we were using. So even right now, you don't have to go back and remap all your folders if you've done that already. So let's go ahead and click OK. And that's just a little bit of insurance to make sure that on your local network, that device is always going to have that address. Now, if you switch internet providers and they give you a new router and stuff like that, you're going to have to reconfigure this. But as it is, now we're good. Okay, so in summary, today what we did is we went to the control panel, we went to users, we created users for our server, people that we want to give access to files for. We went to the control panel and we went to the groups. We created a few different groups, one for accounting, one for paralegals, and we already had one for users and administrators. And then we went to the shared folder department here, And we created shared folders for accounting, for client files, for marketing materials. And inside the groups, we set the permissions of who gets to have access to those folders. Next, what we did is we connected on our computer. Here we go. We mapped the network drive. We went to search, we went to run. We saw this app, clicked OK. We saw the files, right-clicked, and mapped the network drive. Right, so we're starting to get things put together. You're starting to see how some of this file sharing stuff works. And so just to prove that everything's working great, let's click on File Station here. Let's click on Client Files, Steve Jones. Remember, we copied a bunch of folders or a bunch of files to his folder. There they are. They're on the server, not on your local computer, so they're safer. All right, stay tuned for more. We'll be back with more.